I'm really glad to have everybody here today. For the law enforcement, government people who were here yesterday, welcome back to the second day, and also welcome to our private sector and colleagues in academia who are able to join us. Just one quick note before we get started. We have 1.5 hours for lunch today. We are not able to provide lunch, but there is a map in your conference materials of restaurants and coffee shops in the area. Upon request, we've invited our Ukrainian delegation, who will be presenting later this morning, to do a Q&A session during that lunchtime for those who are interested. We'll start that Q&A session right around 12:45. So if you're interested in joining that, invite you to pick up something, bring it back, and partake in that Q&A with our friends from Ukraine. It's my pleasure to introduce this morning the U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona, Gary Restaino. Mr. Restaino has been a federal prosecutor since 2003. He was sworn in as the U.S. Attorney for this district in November 2021. Prior to his employment as a federal prosecutor, Mr. Restaino was a civil rights lawyer from 1999 to 2003 with the Arizona Attorney General's Office, and he was also a legal aid lawyer representing migrant farm workers from 1996 to 1999. Between college and law school, he served for 2 years with the Peace Corps in rural Paraguay. For this event, the U.S. Attorney and the team from his office have been fantastic colleagues in helping us organize this, and so we're very proud to partner with you for this effort. Mr. Restaino.
Well, thanks, Nate, and welcome to all of you for the second day of our strike force convening. I'm mostly here this morning to introduce the virtual remarks of Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, but I first want to give a strong message of thanks and collaboration. First, thanks to Arizona State University's Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law for hosting us the last couple of days, including in this state-of-the-art space that we've seen used for so many good events here in Arizona. We also appreciate the individual participants who've traveled long distances to be here. We are grateful in particular to those from the Ukrainian government delegation. Yuri and Vladislav and Natalia have traveled the farthest by far to get here. We hope you all have a chance to learn from them today. We also thank the leadership groups in the academic research institutions and all the corporations in our communities. You are critical partners in our efforts to control the export of sensitive technologies and to prevent the theft of trade secrets and intellectual property. Your teachers, administrators, information security professionals, and business leaders, and you are vital to helping us protect the United States and our allies. I also have a brief message for the next generation of lawyers. We have many law students here today. I wish you success and excitement in the career ladders that lie ahead of you, and I urge you to consider serving as a federal prosecutor at some point in your journey. Prosecutorial discretion, that is, deciding when to charge the most serious offense or when instead to show mercy, is at the heart of our rule of law, and we encourage everyone to help us in those endeavors. We are always looking for a few good women and men to join the department. Several of my department colleagues hosted a group of law students earlier this week to talk about career paths within the Department of Justice. And for those of you interested in national security matters in particular, we really do hope to see you down the road. With that, then, let me turn to the next bit to put our disruptive technology work in perspective. We're going to see a presentation here on the screen by Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. She has been deeply involved in the mission of the department, including the national security mission, for decades. She's previously served in other leadership roles, including as the Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division and as Chief of Staff to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And early in her career, she was an Assistant United States Attorney, like so many of us in the room today. With that, please focus your attention on the screen in front of you to hear from Deputy Attorney General Monaco.
Hi, everyone. I'm pleased and honored to be a part of this important event. A year ago, I announced the launch of the Disruptive Technology Strike Force, In partnership with the Commerce Department, we at the Department of Justice set out to achieve a major national security priority: to strike back against adversaries trying to steal our most powerful technology and use it against us. You, our nation's top technology experts and strike force members, are gathered in Phoenix today. Your prosecutors, agents, and analysts from our National Security Division, the Commerce Department, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security's HSI, the Department of Defense, and designated U.S. attorneys' offices. You are leaders in the private sector and at research institutions and universities, and you are working as one to respond to an ever-evolving threat landscape. And respond you have. In the last year, you've executed the arrests of more than a dozen corporate executives, engineers, distributors, and other high-profile targets from across the world. They will now answer as criminal defendants in U.S. courts for alleged sanctions and export control violations, smuggling conspiracies, and other offenses involving the unlawful transfer of sensitive information and technology. You've issued denial orders against 29 businesses, including defense companies, airlines, freight forwarders, cutting off their access to U.S. technology. By unearthing vital information about key threat actors, your work has resulted in additions to Commerce's entity list and Treasury's specially designated nationals and blocked persons list. You've engaged with international partners in every corner of the globe to combat this threat by expanding collaboration on technology protection measures. And here at home, you've grown the strike force by adding interagency partners, including the Defense Criminal Investigative Services and enforcement teams from additional U.S. attorneys' offices. Of course, none of this would be possible without potent partnerships in the private sector and with research institutions. We're working more closely than ever before with companies involved in the manufacture, sale, and shipment of sensitive export-controlled items, along with leading universities at the vanguard of R&D in emerging technology. To those partners joining today, welcome and thank you. I also want to offer special appreciation to the two co-leads of this important initiative: Assistant Attorney General Matt Olson of the Justice Department's National Security Division, and Assistant Secretary for Export Enforcement Matt Axelrod of the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security. They have done a fantastic job of spearheading the Disruptive Technology Strike Force. Through their remarkable efforts, we've built and will continue to build a broad coalition of partners here and abroad to fight this threat together. In November, they traveled to Ukraine to reaffirm our commitment to curbing the illegal flow of advanced technology to Russia. And I'm proud to welcome the Ukrainian delegation joining today. Working together to combat this threat is so critical to both of our countries. Over the last year, the Disruptive Technology Strike Force has made great strides in neutralizing threats posed by our adversaries. And I want to be clear, we will not stop. No, we're just getting started. To all of you, thank you for the work you're doing to strike back against our adversaries and to attack tomorrow's national security threats today. You are the engine of our efforts, and I look forward to our second year of work together with many more years to come. Thank you.
Well, good morning to each of you, Matt and Matt.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Gary. Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
That was great to hear the remarks from Deputy Attorney General Monaco. What I'll do now is introduce and give the full props to Matt Olson and Matt Axelrod. You've already heard a little bit from the Deputy Attorney General about their vision They'll give some brief opening remarks, and then we've got a few questions on the panel that we'll have as well. So Matt Olson is the Assistant Attorney General for National Security. In that capacity, he leads the Department of Justice's mission to combat terrorism, espionage, cybercrime, and other threats to national security. From 2011 to 2014, he served as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Prior to leading NCTC, Olson was the general counsel for the National Security Agency. He's worked at DOJ for more than 18 years, including more than 10 years as a federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. And at the far end is Matt Axelrod, the Assistant Secretary for Export Enforcement in the Bureau of Industry and Security at the Department of Commerce. He leads a team dedicated to protecting U.S. national security by enforcing the country's export control laws. Matt and his team work to prevent exports of sensitive goods and technologies that can be used for destructive purposes, such as weapons of mass destruction, proliferation, military applications, terrorism, and human rights abuses. Matt's a longtime public servant with deep criminal and national security enforcement experience, spending over 13 years at the Department of Justice, including time as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, and in a series of high-profile jobs at DOJ headquarters, including as the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. So first of all, to Matt Olson, welcome, and your general thoughts.
Well, let me just start by, again, saying thank you to you, Gary, and to your team here in Phoenix, and to everyone who's joined us. As the Deputy Attorney General just said in her recorded remarks, it is actually quite remarkable to think that 1 year since we started this strike force, we've been able to gather so many people to mark this 1 year anniversary from the government and now also from the private sector. The other thing I would say is that today's sessions include our partners in the private sector, and it is really so critical that we foster this partnership with you all. It's hard to think of any context of our work in law enforcement where the partnership with the private sector is more important. The sanctions, export control work really depends on our work together. So I'm very grateful for your involvement in today, and we'll have more to say about that. Matt?
I'll echo Matt and just say thank you to all of you. I mean, you collectively, both those of you in law enforcement, those of you in industry, those of you in academia, you're the ones on the front lines of this fight, right? You're the ones who are working hard every day to make sure that items aren't going where they're not supposed to go, to make sure that compliance programs are robust and meaningful. And so we couldn't do it without you. On the law enforcement side, I'm so pleased that so many agents and special agents in charge came from all across the country to be here with us for this event, but it's just reflective of the incredible work they've done all year. I want to single out, though, our United States attorneys who've come to be here with us, the people who are there. They're running their entire offices, are in charge, chief federal law enforcement officers for entire districts, but they made the time to be here today, and it's reflective of their commitment to this endeavor. And so it's Mark LaPointe from the Southern District of Florida. You can stand up and say hi. Mark LaPointe from the Southern District of Florida, Josh Levy from the District of Massachusetts, Jill Steinberg from the Southern District of Georgia, Izzy Ramsey from the Northern District of California, Ryan Buchanan from the Northern District of Georgia, Al Hamdani from Houston. Which district is that? Southern District of Texas. Southern District of Texas. All right, sorry. Texas is very big. Raj Parekh from Eastern District of Virginia. Did I get everyone? All right, well, anyway, thanks to our U.S. attorneys.
Well, thanks for that, Matt. We appreciate in the U.S. attorney community that introduction, and let's start with some questions. So for Matt Axelrod, what is it about the national security environment and other global issues today that make this a particularly important time for us to focus on this topic of export controls and sanctions?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So I've said this before, but I try to say it every time I speak. I think there's never been a more important time for export controls and our efforts to prevent sensitive U.S. technology from going where it shouldn't in the world than right now. I say that our mission at the Bureau of Industry and Security, but I think it applies to the strike force as well. And I stole this line from one of our line agents who used to have it as her email signature, that our mission is keeping our country's most sensitive items out of the world's most dangerous hands. And as I said, that's work we all do together. But why do I say it's never more important than right now? Because the national security threat picture is in the middle of an evolution. That when you look at what the experts, right, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence says about the greatest threats facing our country today, it's first and foremost nation-state adversaries, right? Places like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and that's been a shift, right? That's been a shift from 20 years ago, where it was really non-state actors like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and those are, of course, still very important threats to the United States. But we're in the middle of a shift where it's these nation-state actors that is posing the sort of most important and sort of long-term challenges to our national security. And so what does that mean for all of us? It means that one dimension of that threat is their attempt to obtain sensitive U.S. technology in order to modernize their militaries to such a degree that they're able to overtake ours through the powers of this powerful advanced technology, and that would disrupt the balance of power in the world. So the stakes are incredibly high, and I think that making sure that we're all doing our jobs every day to make sure that that technology doesn't get to those nation states is never been more critical.
Well, great. And to Matt Olson, how does the strike force fit into this shifting national security environment that Secretary Axelrod just spoke about?
Yeah, so look, I totally agree, not surprisingly, with Matt Axelrod's sort of perspective on the threat. I should say, given a little bit of experience over time, 10 years ago, I was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. So I saw firsthand, at that time, the threat we faced from Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other terrorist organizations. But look, the threat has changed in exactly the ways that Matt Axelrod has said, that we're now facing threats from persistent adversaries who are determined to obtain access to our most sensitive technologies. And again, these are the tools that can provide our adversaries with a military advantage in a strategic way. They're also tools that provide authoritarian regimes with surveillance authorities and other ways of violating human rights. So we saw this, Matt and I did firsthand, when we were in Kyiv in Ukraine last November. We met with Ukrainian officials, some of whom are here with us today, and saw firsthand then the challenge that is faced by the Ukrainian people and their leaders when it comes to the fact that sensitive technologies coming from the West, and particularly from the United States, are ending up in Russian missiles and Russian drones. So it's hard to imagine a more poignant example of the importance of our work. So it's because of that, because of what we've experienced through our partners and what we've seen in our work, that we decided a year ago to join forces, really, to redouble our efforts. We've always had export control laws on the books, but the challenge was so great that we needed to figure out what can we do more to align our efforts, to build on partnerships that exist, and to send the demand signal in some ways from our headquarters organizations to the field where the work is actually being done by the agents, the FBI agents, the HSI agents, the BIS officers, and importantly, the U.S. attorneys and their teams to bring these cases, to investigate and bring these cases. So that was the idea behind the strike force, Gary, was to bring together all of those organizations that have responsibility in this area, and I think we're already seeing the results. 1 year in, we brought a number of cases. Last May, we announced 5 cases. 5 of the U.S. attorneys came to Washington, D.C., and we stood together and announced these cases along with Secretary Axelrod. We've charged actors who have engaged in building procurement networks to illicitly obtain semiconductor technologies that were going to Russia. We brought cases involving U.S. tech companies that were the victims of trade secrets and theft of intellectual property. We've charged China-based defendants who are seeking to acquire drone technologies that end up in Iran and in Iranian drones. And then, if I may, just yesterday, and there's been some press on this, we had two new cases that we announced. One was a case where we arrested somebody in California, a man in California, for allegedly stealing more than 3,600 files from a research development company where he worked. And over the course of a month, that individual stole blueprints for sophisticated infrared sensors that could be used to detect missile launches. And it was during the investigation that federal agents discovered that he had done this before, and he had retained confidential and export-controlled information from two prior employees that were then made its way into to China. And the other case that we announced yesterday, we charged two Iranian-based defendants for seeking to obtain component parts that could be used in Iran's aerospace industry. So again, just yesterday, two new cases that I think show, to your question about how we fit in, that we're continuing to push on this effort. And again, looking forward, we're going to keep going down this path into 2024.
Well, that's great. And let's go to Matt Axelrod for the Talking Forward discussion. We heard from Deputy Attorney General Monaco about some of the accomplishments, and you and Matt Olson have amplified those today. What's coming up next in year two?
Yeah, exactly. Where do we go from here? So I'd say a couple of things to look forward to in year two. You know, anytime you start a new initiative, there is some ramp up time. We're ramped up, right? As yesterday's cases are a perfect example of. And so now we're running forward. I think you can expect to see in 2024 more cases like the two yesterday, as all of the strike force cells continue to, work leads and bring investigations across the finish line. In addition to the types of cases that Matt mentioned from yesterday, I think you can anticipate seeing some bigger ticket corporate resolutions in 2024. And those types of cases are slightly different than the types of cases that Matt was mentioning. Both are important. The bigger corporate cases have sort of an additional benefit when we bring them. It's not only that we hold people accountable for violating our rules, but also I think it sends a really strong message about the importance of investing in compliance on the front end. Right? We have lots of people from industry here today. You may have heard me say this before, but I'll say it again, which is we would much rather work with you to help you comply with our rules on the front end than have to enforce on the back end. Because when we enforce on the back end, it means that items have already gone where they shouldn't, and the national security harm has already happened. But sometimes, I understand we live in the real world, to really convince people to spend the money to invest in compliance on the front end, it helps sometimes if there are concrete examples of what can happen when you don't. We actually put out a publication from the Department of Commerce, from our Bureau of Industry and Security, which some of you may be familiar with. It is literally called "Don't Let This Happen to You." It is a compendium of cases that we've brought over the years, and now we'll include cases that we brought with our partners in the strike force as well, so that companies can review and see what type of examples have gotten people into trouble in the past. So long way of saying my prediction is for 2024, you'll start to see some bigger corporate resolutions that hopefully, in addition to holding people accountable, will have that sort of knock-on deterrence effect. I also think you've seen this past year from us through Department of Justice, Department of Commerce, Department of Treasury, other federal agencies, a real increase in focus on guidance documents for industry, again, along the lines of wanting to help you understand our rules and help you be able to comply with them. I think we're going to continue to do that as well. I know we have some freight forwarder guidance that'll be coming out of the Commerce Department in the not too distant future that in keeping with the Know Your Cargo Tri-Seal document that came out last year, and I think you can expect some additional Tri-Seals coming down the pike as well.
Well, great. And back to Matt Olson to finish this up. So, Matt, today's second day of this summit is a public session, and we have some representatives from our industry partners here today. What message does the strike force have for the private sector?
So, yesterday we spent the day more of an internal session with our government investigators and prosecutors. And one of the points I made there is that a hallmark of this effort is enforcement. This is really an enforcement organization, the strike force, consisting of people who investigate violations and bring cases and take administrative actions to enforce the law. So, and that continues to be, going forward, a key part of what we do. I think the message that I would focus on, though, today with our private sector partners is that partnership, because we certainly are an enforcement team, but we're also looking to take advantage of one of our strongest tools in this fight, and that is building incentives for the private sector in the industries that are most susceptible or most at risk, building incentives or creating incentives for you all to build strong compliance programs, risk-based compliance programs, to do exactly what Secretary Axelrod said, to avoid us having to come down on the enforcement side when you violate the laws or a company violates the laws. So we are going to be very focused this year, Gary, looking ahead on engagements like this or more direct one-to-one engagements to build those partnerships so that we can rely on, whether it's financial institutions, defense companies, technologies companies, to have those compliance programs so you all can be in a position to identify and detect violations, to see red flags, to provide information to us, and to really drive corporate responsibility. You all, a point we're going to continue to make, you all are on the front lines of this effort, and you are sitting often at the intersection of national security and corporate compliance. One of the things I would say for our part back in the Justice Department, working with the U.S. attorneys who are represented here, we have focused on corporate enforcement. We now have two leaders in the National Security Division whose job it is to bring corporate enforcement cases. We've hired attorneys into the sections that are responsible for compliance. Responsible for export and sanctions enforcement. We've updated our voluntary self-disclosure policies, working with Commerce and other agencies like Treasury. We've issued compliance documents to the field to help you understand what you need to do to avoid crossing a line. So all of that is part of our broader effort. And then you're going to hear from the Ukrainian delegation in a moment. I think, again, it just shows, looking ahead to 2024, how high the stakes are when it comes to the work that we're doing. Again, not just doing as government representatives, but doing with you all in the private sector. So I'm very excited about what's to come in 2024.
Great, and we do want to make sure we reserve the full time for our friends from Ukraine. Thanks to each of the Matts for their optimism and their leadership on the strike force.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, everyone.
All right, and I am now very pleased to be able to introduce our next session, which is the opportunity to hear from our colleagues and friends from Ukraine who've traveled so far to be with us here today. As Matt Axelrod and I spoke about just a moment ago, he and I had the opportunity, along with a few others, to go to Kyiv in late October, early November last year, and to meet with our colleagues and others from the Ukrainian government and to talk about our work and how we can make that work more effective. And I think we left both inspired by the resilience and the courage of the Ukrainian people and their leaders, and also committed to continuing the work and redoubling our efforts to support them by doing our part to stem the flow of technologies that are ending up in Russian weapons and then on the battlefield and harming the Ukrainian people. So again, it is my pleasure to introduce our next set of speakers. First, Yuri Byelousov, who is the head of the War Crimes Department in the Office of the Prosecutor General. In the middle, Dr. Natalia Nestor, who is the Deputy Director of the Kyiv Scientific Research Institute of Forensic Expertise, also part of the Ministry of Justice. And then finally, we'll hear from Vladislav Vlelusik. He is the advisor in the Office of the President of Ukraine, President Zelensky's office, focusing on sanctions. So please give a warm round of applause and welcome.
Dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure for me to be here and to meet you all. Yesterday we had a meeting with our partners from state institutions. I would like to apologize because what they heard yesterday, some words I would have to repeat again for our new friends who are here representing private sector and university. We really appreciate as Ukrainians the whole support that the United States provides to us. Each of Ukrainians understand that Ukraine alone has no chance to fight against such a powerful enemy as Russia, because we're just absolutely incomparable in strengths, in budgets, in manpower. But we also understand that Ukraine now is fighting not just for itself. Ukraine is really fighting now for the whole democratic world and the human being values, and it's not just words for us. We really faced, as we see, the evil in its nature, because what we see every day, I'm leading the Department of Investigation War Crimes, so we never faced before such types of war crimes, torture, sexual violence, kidnapping of our children, deportation of them to Russia, and attacks to our energy infrastructure, civilian objects. That's incomparable with whatever we've seen before. And we couldn't even imagine it could happen with us, with so-called neighbors who call us brothers shortly, recently. And the problem is that our enemy is extremely powerful. Russian annual budget, military budget, is exceeded $100 billion US, annual military budget. So we could imagine how many different weapons they could produce, they could buy for that. And why we are here? We definitely came here not to teach you anything or not to criticize our partners. We came here to share our concerns with you. We really think we try to find the way how to limit the power of our enemy, how to limit the power of aggressor. And we all understand that with all help the United States is providing, Russia is using rules which are not acceptable in a normal life, normal world, and they try to they're cheaters in the worst meaning of this word, and they try to steal all what our colleagues said before us, all possible technologies to make them stronger. And unfortunately, we see, and my colleague Natalia would go in more details, that unfortunately a lot of parts which come to our country, to our houses, to our hospitals, to our schools, in rockets, drones, and missiles, are being produced by foreign countries, including the United States. That's why we are here, really to discuss with you and to present you what we see in Ukraine and really to find the way how to fight with that. Just let me give you a couple of figures by today's morning statistics. By this morning, we have in Ukraine 147 1,000 civilian objects been destroyed in Ukraine for the last 2 years. 118,000 residential facilities, 2,982 educational facilities, 333 medical institutions, 524 cultural facilities, 167 religious facilities, and others. And all these objects been destroyed by Russian missiles. We have just official figures because we understand that it's the top of iceberg. We have almost 12,000 civilians been killed, including 523 children. And that's the reality we have. But again, we all understand that when we deoccupy the territories, we would see that these figures, unfortunately, would be much, much higher. For my presentation, we tried to select the types of means of attacks, rockets and missiles, where we found parts produced, including the United States. Here we just briefly describe the type of rockets. It's just to show you that, sorry, maybe you don't see it from your position, but it's a huge variety of rockets. It's not just one type. They use rockets, which abbreviation is 101. It's extremely precise rockets. Its deviation is 10 meters, and it flies several thousand miles. And this rocket has been produced, including December last year. So it's absolutely new rockets. It's not like something they had in stock for many years. It's caliber. Caliber, they attack us from Black Sea. It's also absolutely powerful and difficult to intercept such kind of rockets. Actually, what I also need to mention is great thanks for that due to your support, due to your technology, Ukraine became much, much stronger for the last year, and our militaries managed to intercept a lot of rockets being sent to our houses, but not all of them. It's just physically not possible. And just yesterday, when we came to you, Russia attacked Ukraine again. And just in Kiev, they attacked with 22 rockets. All of them were intercepted, but we need to understand when the rocket has been intercepted. It's intercepted, and all remaining just fall down, and no one knows where it could fall down. 2 days ago, one of the buildings was injured 300 meters from Natalia's house and around 1 kilometer from my house. It was 18-floor building, and 4 floors were totally destroyed with civilians inside. It's including Iskander type of rockets, and this for us it's maybe one of the most difficult to intercept because it's ground launch, so it's difficult to monitor. They could put it at the border, and it takes just a couple of minutes before this rocket comes to our house. And the disaster for Ukraine really is drones. It's Iranian drones because it's absolutely cheap. They have thousands of them. They send it from absolutely different places, locations, and it's extremely difficult also to intercept. And these drones, they cause a lot of damages to us. I would give you a couple of examples. Again, I don't want to describe in details all of them because I just don't have time, but just to show you where it goes. For example, on June 27, Russian Federation, they attack the cafe in Kramatorsk. It's Cafe Ria Pizza. 77 people were injured, 13 of them were killed, including US citizens. People who just came to have a lunch, a pizza. And 13 people, died there. 4 of them were children. I don't mean all buildings destroyed around this pizza cafe. Here we have also pictures in Kryvyi Rih, in Dnipro, when they attacked a 9-story residential building, and 4 people died and 32 were injured, including 5 children. That's the picture not a picture, it's a video. We did actually, thanks again to United States, because we did it 3D model of this building with the drones by company Skydio, which helped us to effectively fix the damages we have. But it's a drama theater. They attacked it on Sunday at 10 a.m. during the biggest Christian celebration. And they tuned the Iskander rocket in a way that it exploded in the air. And it led to the 7 people being killed who were sitting in their cars. Just in the city center of the city Chernigov, including 1 child. And almost 200 people were injured, sorry. They attack all variety of possible facilities. They really want to terrorize civilian population, and rockets play a significant role because they are not able physically to occupy our territory. Our militaries, provide a significant resistance. That's why they can't reach physically our civilians, fortunately, great part of them. That's why they try to reach us using rockets and missiles. That's again examples, and let me show you this video. That's the hospital in Dnipro. Just ordinary hospital in the city center of Dnipro. Dnipro is the third largest city in Ukraine. And they attacked it, and 4 people died. We were injured, 2 of them died. They both were doctors, the people who provide medical treatment. Fortunately for us, not many people died because of alarm. They managed to take all patients, go down to a shelter. But 4 of them didn't manage, and 2 doctors died of that. And there is no military objects around. That's the results of using Shaheds, what I mentioned, these drones. Russia tried to hide, but not too sophisticated. They're not so sophisticated that they changed name Shahed. They put the name Gerань, which is Russian name, trying to say that they originally produced in Russia, but we have a big investigation. We know exactly which companies in Iran producing these drones, how they supply it to Russia, and how many parts and details are inside, and which countries they have been produced in. Just another examples when you could see these private houses, schools. Actually, to the school, this building, it's what's left from the school. Just ordinary school. There was no military objects inside, and unfortunately, 4 members of the staff were wounded, and they killed the director of the school. Fortunately, there were no children inside. But that's what's left from the school. And can you just imagine the figure I mentioned in the beginning, and when more than 140,000 civilian objects been destroyed. That's why really we came here to share it with you. We really appreciate the help of our partners who come to Ukraine, who help us to investigate, who help us to prosecute. But we really need your help to establish effective control, to be sure that all parts you have been producing are not then being found in Ukraine in missiles and rockets killing our people. And I really appreciate your presence here for me to demonstrate that you understand the problem and that you are ready to help. Thank you so much for that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to welcome here, and I would thank you for your job. I present of your attention my speech on the topic examination of weapons and means of destruction as evidence of use of non-Russia parts in Russia armed aggression against Ukraine. I represent the most experienced and oldest institute of forensic expertise. It's a Kyiv Scientific Research Institute of Forensic Expertise of the Ministry of Justice of Ukraine. We have 110 years of experience. We conduct 96 types of different forensic examination, including the most resonant. You have all probably heard about the planes being shot down Boeing 777 flight MH17, which was hit in year 2014, and Boeing 737, which was shot down in Iran in the year 2020. It was us who did the expertise of these airlines together with experts from other countries and provide exactly what caused the airplanes to crash. And it was missiles, Russian missiles. And now I want to show you what we are doing. Please, let's look at the screen. No. Since the year 2014 up to now, this unjust, bloody, terrible war is going on my land, in which children, women, and the best sons and daughters of Ukrainians are dying to stop a full-scale Russian invasion. Every day and every night, there are alarms in my country, missiles flying that bring violence, destruction, and death. On this slide, you can see the types of missiles and weapons that Russia is using against civilians in Ukraine. There are different kinds of weapons that we are investigating. And one of the main questions of the examination is, what parts do the missile or weapons consist of, and who is the manufacturers of these parts? Please look at the screen. It's a Shahed 136, or kamikaze drone. It's the same. Explosive weight from 46 kilograms to 51 kilograms. It has a range of 1,000 kilometers. 4,000 Shaheds were fired on Ukraine. Then you see the impacts of Shahed in the center of Kyiv in October 2022. The result, it's 5 corpses, included a pregnant woman, 6 months pregnant, and many wounded people. And the Shahed attack in March 2023, the result is 9 dead bodies and many wounded among the children. Next on the screen are the parts of these Shaheds and the manufacturers. There's filters, processors, circuits, and so on. Manufactured by companies in the United States of America. And please note that we examine the samples of the components and the date of manufacture, and they are new, December 2023. Which tell us that shipments are still being made. Components we found not only from United States of America, but also it's Europe and China. This slide, it's Tornado. It's a Russian multiplex launch rocket system with a range of up to 120 kilometers. It's regularly used by Russia. They make intensive use of common commercial ships available on the civilian market, which we have investigated. Next slide, it's X-101. It's a Russian strategic air-to-surface cruise missile using radar avoidance technologies. Maximum flight range it's 5,000 kilometers. Explosive power 400 kilograms. Launches of the X-101 began in March 2022 and continue to these days, with 17 missiles fired at Kyiv at 2nd of January of this year. We also find components of United States of America origin in them. Next slide. It's a Kinzhal. Kinzhal is a Russian aerial ballistics missile capable of carrying off a nuclear warhead. The range is 3,000 kilometers, explosive weight from 300 kilograms to 400 kilograms. The first use of the missiles in March 2022 to date. We also find American-made parts in the missile. In the photo, you saw a shopping mall in Kyiv, which was hit by this missile. It's 300 meters from my house. And to this day, I still remember the sound of Kinzhal. Next slide. It's Iskander. Iskander is a Russia tactical missile system. The range is from 500 to 700 kilometers. There is a modification for launching cruise missile with a maximum range of up to 2,000 kilometers. Explosive weight is 400 kilograms. On the screen you can see the components that make up these rockets, and it is also American made. I'm providing you with a screenshot from the Bloomberg newspaper publication of January 25, 2024, which indicated that Russia continues to buy integrated circuits and conductors produced in Europe and United States of America. In 2023, it's purchased $1 billion worth. And we all need independence. We all need freedom, democracy, and care for everyone. About everyone who works conscientiously, who lives honestly, who respects the law. We in Ukraine did not believe that there could be war in 21st century. But not one nation can have a guarantee from this kind of action. And I ask you, thinking about, and my request as scientist, as an official, and as a mother of 8 years child who lives in Kyiv and sits in the shelter when missiles fly. Instead of getting knowledge at school, ask manufacturers of parts that supply Russia to think about the consequences of your business and stop helping the terrorism and terrorists. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Morning, dear friends. My name is Vlad Vlasuk. I work for President Zelensky. Mostly I've been doing sanctions, so I'm also known as the sanctions guy of Ukraine. But these two topics are very much related, and as you probably know, the sanctions over the intermediaries and some other suppliers of microelectronics and some other military-related stuff aim to disrupt Russia's ability at the battlefield. This is one of the most important areas of the sanctions. We've been doing the sanctions packages so far since the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, and a vast part of it is exactly on the battlefield related, and some of the designations are really based on the information that we've been sharing with the partners, including the US government, but not only the US government. And that is something that really helpful and impactful against Russia's ability to continue this war. Here in my presentation, I just want to brief you on what is our government's been doing so far on the sanctions stream, including the microelectronics and some other Western technologies in relation to the Russia's ability to wage this war, to continue its war aggression. So we have, first of all, the government. A lot of words been said today about the partnerships. So, well, we have a lot of the partnerships. We have a lot of state agencies working on the sanctions stream and on the prevention of the Russia's supply of microelectronics. So quite fortunately, we are able to receive all of the weapons Russia made, Iran made, and recently North Korea made. So these are the missiles they've been launching against us, being the UAVs, at least 15 different types, this being radio warfare, this being some other stuff, including the Tornado and some other things. And all of them are either consisting the Western-made parts, or being produced with the machinery tools and software available from the West technologies also. And that is a huge thing. So yeah, again, we've been picking up all the examples and items from the battlefield and from the civil infrastructure hits, and then we will deliver those items to the special institutions, including the Dr. Nestor's institution, and then the guys will dismantle all of the items, will examine it, and will make or compile files, the very detailed files about what was inside every single items, what Western parts were inside of every single part. And the most important thing to me and to you guys probably is the date of production. And yes, that is true that we still are seeing not just the missiles made very recently, very freshly made, but also they consist very freshly made, produced Western parts of some of your companies. We also have at our disposal the intelligence agencies of Ukraine, including the famous GUR with General Budanov in head. And the guys would also provide some intelligence or intel reports on how exactly some of the parts being smuggled or flew into Russia, into Russian production facilities. We also have been studying the ways of financing the Russia's facilities and some other stuff. So you've probably seen quite just, I guess, 2 days ago, our intelligence agencies discovered the way how exactly Russia's special facility named Alabuga was doing the payments towards Iran for the Shahid drones that was made mostly with the gold. That's why the sanctions over gold is so much important, and that's why the sanctions against the financial institutions is also very much important. So I'm just saying that these all areas are very much overlapping and interrelated. So we would do we would share the files we compile with all the partners, so those would end either on the end of sanctions or on the end of the export controls and some other things and steps our great partners been doing so far. We also have the non-governmental institutions working hard to increase the pressure on Russia, increase the sanctions pressure, increase the export controls. So we have this international group of experts, so-called the Yermak-Makfol group of experts, co-chaired by Mr. Makfol, the ambassador to Russia, former. And then we have some of the NGOs which have been doing very data-based and data-driven research. So that would be the Kyiv School of Economy, that would be the RUSI, the British institution, and some other institution. What is beautiful about that? That is, in our world now, there is so much data available. And we've been quite able to first obtain those data sets, including the customs data from Russia and some of the neighborhood countries. Then we will be able to study all of the data. So we are quite able to say what are the trends in terms of imports and exports of microelectronics and some other army or military related stuff to Russia. So that is also important about raising the awareness. We all know that sometimes the government should be always reminded what is important and what action should be taken in order to react to some important challenges we all have. These are just some of the examples of the files we compile. So to your left, this is one of the examples of a study of an item. This is the example of French thermal imaging metrics found in the Russian-made UAV, produced by a learned company. And believe us, we've done at least 100 of these files. Those would be shared with the partners. To your right, one of the examples of the working papers or recommendations crafted by this international group of experts. As you see, this is working group paper number 16. So from the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, we've already done even 17 or 18 papers full of recommendations on the policy development, on sanctions, on export controls. On the top, this is the most comprehensive files. We have at least 5 of them. This one, on the example, this is the Russia's use of CNC machines for weapons production. This is also a very big deal. The CNC machinery tool, this is a really big deal for Russia to be able to continue the production. But we also done these thick files full of pictures, full of very concrete numbers, of serious numbers of the items. That is on the missiles, that is on Russian drone, that is on Russia radio warfare, that is on Russia fighter jets, and some other things. So we've been doing a lot of research on our end in that regard. And that, below there is a file that is also to be shared with the sanction coordinators and other government officials of many of the Western countries, and not just Western. So this is just to give you an image how it looks like. So we would always produce a picture of a part in question, and then serial number, and then this microelectronic thing, whether it be a microchip or some other. And we would also do our research on what country of production, what series number, what date of production, and some other. So these are some files. They are all available to the governments, and if any of you would like to receive some of these files, I think I can share some of these files, so please come to me and ask. What we've also learned that the microelectronics unfortunately continue to flow to Russia. This is what we see from our most recent intel reports. The good news is that some of the parts are much less available or even not available anymore for Russia, and they're really, really struggling to substitute it. Sometimes it takes Russians to take 3 Chinese-made circuit boards instead of 1 American-made Western circuit board, just because they need this to achieve the same level of productivity, and they cannot do with their worst stuff. And as I've been saying, the very important it is that just not sanctions to be introduced, but then the sanctions should be enforced. I think that this is also not just about the enforcement, but that the colleagues were saying that is also about the front end, the compliance, about the education, that all right, guys, we see the problem, we continue to see your products available for Russians. Let's build a partnership. Let's work together to prevent it from further supplies. We continue the diplomacy efforts, of course. We are always very much happy to see some of the law enforcement cases. Of course, as you probably understand, this war is turning more and more into the war of technologies. Given the rise of the importance of the UAVs, first of all, and everything related. So believe me or not, but the war is really, really changing. The pattern is now different. And that is, I think, the very moment when the technologies is to step in at maximum size and to influence all of these and maybe future conflicts. Again, as colleagues already said, this is not just about Ukraine and Russia. This is also about some other adversaries of the U.S. government and the U.S. nation. And I think that we also have been proved ourselves as quite a reliable partner in anything in relation to that. Just maybe a final slide. So we've been also thinking not just about the more sanctions and more sanctions enforcement and more export controls, but we've also been thinking about the education. So we started building in Ukraine some modern engineering schools to be able to get the best use of the knowledge we've been receiving, not really willingly, but yet we've been receiving a lot of knowledge on the modern weapons and some of the stuff. So we started to build the modern engineering school. So again, if any of you would be interested to know more about the engineering school or to explore some opportunities of potential partnership on that, please come to me. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, of course, the most effective way to stop Russia's is to use our UAVs against their oil refineries and some other military facilities. And we've been doing that, believe us, we've been doing that also. But of course, what we are trying to do it is to get some results on like different streams, including sanctions, law enforcement, education, and of course, some military actions. Thank you for your attention. Please follow these links to know more. Thank you.